Ago. Ago. For those who do not know this call, Ago is a call to attention. And when this call is made, you make the caller know that they have your attention by responding with Amen. So I'll make the call again. Ago. Ago. All right, thank you very much for your patience. We would like to begin. We would like all those seated at the back to kindly move forward so that we can begin the program. So those seated at the back, can you please come forward? Shall we give them a round of applause as they move forward? Thank you very much. Okay. We are going to zoom in straight into the program. I would like to introduce the chairman for this occasion. And the chairman is the Deputy Director of the National Service Scheme. And he is in the person of Mr. Kweku Ohene-Jan. Shall we give him a round of applause? Further introduce the South African High Commissioner to Ghana, and she is in the person of Her Excellency Grace Janet Mason. Shall we give her a round of applause? We have in our midst the Secretary General of the Pan-African Writers Association, and he is in the person of Dr. Wale Okediran. Doctor. We also have in our midst the editor of the anthology for which we are gathered here today, Professor Ivor Ajimandria. Shall we give him a round of applause? All right, at this point, we are going to take the welcome and opening remarks from the director of the Goethe-Institut, Heike Friesel. Shall we give her a round of applause?
Thank you very much. Yes, I would like to give a very, very warm welcome to all of you to this wonderful evening. I'm very much looking forward to hear more about the book. The anthology of 56 stories from 17 countries. I think this is really like spannend, exciting. Sorry. And yes, and we had a short pause, so I'm very happy to have more audience again here at the Institute. And of course, my very special welcome is to Her Excellency, the High Commissioner from the South Africa High Commissioner to Ghana, Ms. Grace Mason. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the evening, and I'll give the mic back to our wonderful MC. Where is he?
Thank you very much. I introduced the chairman for the occasion earlier, and we will take some remarks from the chairman, Mr. Kweku Ohene-Jan. Chairman.
Her Excellency, the South African High Commissioner to Ghana, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, patrons of the arts, I stand in for the Executive Director of the scheme, Honorable Osei Esibe Entry, and I also seize the opportunity to relay his apologies to you for his inability to be here. From where we sit as a scheme, that is the National Service, we have always been in transition, not only with youth who are graduating, but into life after the studies. We sometimes help with the cultivation of values that will help them make that transition, because we are always in transition. That is from the period where they are in school through to the period where they graduate, have their service, they are deployed, and also have their 1-year mandatory national service, which is the very first time they have experience with the world of work. As you all know, one of such avenues is knowledge acquisition. And this knowledge acquisition comes through reading. It is therefore with great interest that we are collaborating with the Pan-African Writers Association, the Goethe-Institut, and the editor of this masterpiece. Values are translocal to the extent that we have 56 stories from across Africa. We have much to read and much to learn from Ghana and the 27 countries which are written on. It is on the basis of this that we are excited, not just to partner you this evening, but to also accept gladly to chair this occasion. So I look forward to your support so that at the end of the day, this lunch becomes a very successful one. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Now we will take greetings from the Pan-African Writers Association, and this will be done by Dr. Wale Okedira. Shall we give him a round of applause?
Thank you, Mr. MC. Your Excellency, the South African High Commissioner to Ghana, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you, make these short remarks on behalf of the Pan-African Writers Association. A few years ago, Ivor, the quintessential editor and intellectual, approached us at Power for a collaboration to bring to forth this masterpiece of publication. And together we went to task on getting our members all over the African continent and the diaspora to send in contributions to the book. Those of you who are familiar with gathering stories from writers from all over the world will confirm the difficulty in making selection from the avalanche of submissions that usually come in. This goes to show how active and blessed our African writers are. I didn't pity Ivor because at a point we had a problem or the challenge of having to pick or deciding on which stories to pick. He had quality stories all over the place, and we're very mindful of the fact that we shouldn't produce something that will be too big and that will not be accessible to readers. And the point is, sometimes you can even make enemies when people submit stories and you don't pick their stories. At a point, we have to use all kinds of techniques to decide on stories to pick. I'm sure some people are not talking to Ivor now again because of this. Well, he's used to it. He's been doing this over the years. And a few days ago, the Pan-African Writers Association held its General Assembly in Nigeria. And we had writers from 40 African countries. So we decided to take that advantage of introducing this book to the audience. And even though we are not ready for the big launch, and the crowd was very excited. So many professors of literature and English were jumping over themselves at this rich combination of books, of stories. And we're able to sell a couple of copies, and more copies have been booked for. In fact, about a few other professors have even volunteered to be our salesmen in pushing this book into the curriculum of many African and universities abroad. So I'm very happy that this is a success story. I want to congratulate the publisher, who is also another veteran businessman. I think he told me he launched about 3 books already this month. I don't know where I get these books from. Congratulations, DigiBooks. I want to congratulate the contributors. Some of them are online because when it was announced in Ibadan that this book will be launched today, many of our contributors requested for a Zoom link so that they could join us. So I want to congratulate them. Some of them are online. And then looking forward to a very successful outing. And then the business part of it is how to market the book. We are talking to the publisher to see how we can have a soft cover book edition, because some students who are already itching to dive into the book are a bit scared about the price. So we hope that DigiBooks will be able to give us something affordable. On this note, I welcome you all and wish you a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wale Okediran. Now, for the reason why we are all gathered here, we are going to have the formal launch of the anthology and remarks by Her Excellency Grace Mason, the South African High Commissioner to Ghana. Shall we give her a round of applause as the launching ceremony is conducted?
Good evening, and thank you for the invitation. I am humbled and honored to be here this evening. As you have said, Dr. Wale, there are relationships that have already been established between South Africa and yourselves as the Pan-African Writers Association. Goes as far as I can remember when I started my tour of duty in Ghana just 18 months ago. I also like to say thank you to the chairman. And as you've indicated, Dr. Wale, I've a quintessential editor, but I'd like to stand on all the protocols that have been established. And just to say that my role for this evening is actually the easiest and simplest, but the most significant one to actually launch this anthology. But also, before I do that, just brief remarks that South Africa is proudly also, South African writers have also made a contribution. And I would just like to say that as we speak about being African, and including my brothers and sisters of African descent in the diaspora, that we begin to define our own destinies. And when we say we begin to define our own destinies as Africans, this is how we do it. We keep our stories, because our culture, our history, our heritage is inextricably linked And hence I have a copy, and my copy, editor, I received it. It is in my office, and I keep it in my office as a coffee book desktop. So all the courtesy calls and the meetings that I receive, I use it as a reference, and I will also be telling these stories and African stories. And this is also just an inspiration to young kids. I have my daughters that I've come along with as well. My dad used to say to me when I grew up, don't show me your friends, show me your library and I'll show you your future. So that had already instilled the culture of reading, but also just for us to define our own history. So I would like to take the honor, the singular honor of launching the voices that sing behind the veil, an anthology of short stories from Africa and the diaspora. To the editor, thank you. May God continue to bless you, bless Ghana, and bless South Africa, our peaceful and prosperous continent, and to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. Thank you.
Don't show me your friends, show me your library, and I'll tell you your future. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It's now time to hear from the editor and the contributors to this anthology. Help me welcome onto the stage Dr. Mary Ishen. Shall we give her a round of applause? Dr. Martin Ebleogbe. The moderator for this session, Mr. Dela Nyamuame. Shall we give him a round of applause? Dr. Wale Okediran. Shall we give him a round of applause? And then Mr. Saki Soa.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'll just pass the mic around for quick introductions. I know that your names have already been mentioned, but tell us something interesting about you. All right. So, Doc.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Ishen. I am a teacher. I have 3 sons. The oldest one is 30 years old. To say that, because that's been a long 30 years. I've been writing for about 15 years. It started off very tentatively, not quite sure about it. I must say, since moving to Ghana 8 years ago, I've just been writing short stories. And Iva has been an amazing editor, has published a couple of my short stories, and I'm ever so grateful to be able to work with them. So really pleased to be here. I notice I'm the only woman on stage. I'm wondering why. That needs to be answered.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Iva Ajmendia, and we worked with these gentlemen and these ladies, very special lady.
on this book, and it's a pleasure to finally see the product and to have some discussions on their stories. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Martin, and just like my colleagues here, I'm a writer. I like writing short stories and telling people stories. Really. Professionally, I am a physics lecturer, and yeah, that's about it. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. On one occasion, I'm a writer, originally trained as a medical doctor. I had to hang my stethoscope because I love writing. I've authored more than 15 novels, and my latest novel, Tenants of the House, is a film now on Netflix. And supposed to be here. I currently run the Pan-African Writers Association as the Secretary General. Thank you.
My name is Sagi Sowa, a film director by profession. I trained as an just by some 27 years ago. And I've been writing, publishing short stories in the Mirror, writing for television drama, and then stage plays. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Dela Nyamwame, popularly known as Efo Dela, and my life is not half as interesting as the guests, but I do write a bit. I've not published anything, but I have a blog. So yeah, that's it about me. All right. So I would ask Doc to read maybe a paragraph from one of her stories, and then I think I would ask everybody to read a paragraph just so that, yeah.
So my story is chapter 7, found on page 79. The title is Kweku Checks Out. I sat cross-legged on my beach mat, staring out at the endless ocean. I wondered how long it'd take for the African-American woman in a bikini and sitting on the horse to stop the man behind her on the same horse from cupping her breasts. Well, perhaps she liked it, but she didn't know him, I thought. And then again, I realized that these days, that doesn't seem to matter. Anyone seemed to be able to touch anyone, and it didn't matter. Even presidents were doing this. So why not a Labadi horse boy with dreadlocks and rippling muscles who looked like he lived on the beach and had a cracking whip and straight white teeth? This was one of those escape days when I would get out of my comfort zone so I'd observe different kinds of people who lived in my city. Last month, I'd walked around Makola, absorbing the smells and colors and noises. I even paid for a bag of tomatoes with mobile money and marveled at an economy that was so varied. This woman, Auntie K, yes, I heard someone refer to her as such, was sitting in a dry gutter. I'm not sure why I headed for her in the sea of tomato sellers lining the road. I picked a few tomatoes from her, carefully arranged, and asked of the price. She named it, but when I dug into my bag, I realized I had just 5 cedis, and this would not pay for what I'd purchased. I didn't want to leave the tomatoes, so I thought I would ask. She accepted payment through mobile money. As I sat reflecting, I realized my phone battery had died. I saw the lifeguard shack not too far off, so I made my way there to plug the phone in for more juice. That's when the WhatsApp notification came in. Kweku had committed suicide, and it was from Kweku.
I'll let everybody read and then I'll come to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll tell you a little bit about this story. I think it's even a little bit unusual for the kind of stories that I write, and then I'll go ahead and read just from the opening. This is titled Breathing Exercises for the Damned. And I kind of structured it as a story that it was very poetic in the sense that there is a motive, there's a kind of a lead motive that runs through. So, and it runs around the words, for he's a jolly good fellow. In essence, it's about a gentleman who is forced to marry his girlfriend who had died on his hands. A jolly good fellow. Kumao knew that Naomi's father always turned off the generator at 9 to preserve the natural silence of the night. But when the frenetic racing of the engine died suddenly, promptly, Kumao felt that the machine had been switched off only to enhance the torture. For once, couldn't the night tolerate the roar and the exhaust till dawn? The animals and the insects, could they not abide just one night without their full comforts? And the spirits, they who had no sense of time, what would one noisy night do to them? And why would the hum and the burning in the cylinders of the hot yellow Perkins be too much for them to bear if it was for just one night? Just one night. The harsh amber light from the sodium lamps dimmed and the darkness crept into the compound from the forest. When the darkness finally took hold, the cloudless sky was so black, and there was a sudden burst of starlight through the window. It took a while for Kumao to register the natural sounds of the night: screaming monkeys, squawking birds, shrilling insect whistlings, rumblings, and roars from no determinate source. Ah, yes, the sounds of the night that needed to come through for the house to have a settled sleep, and for the spirits to remain pacific, for there was no telling what enraging them would do. Kumao lit the kerosene lamp, raising the wick to shed a smoky yellow light on the bed table. Absurd shadows fell on the farther wall, and when the flame trembled or sputtered, these became shape-shifting monsters. The light fell across the bed, lighting up the features of Naomi. Recently dead, she could be easily mistaken for one asleep. The soft light hit the graying lips and the drawn cheeks. Outside, an animal of some sort started an abominable screaming. Wow, wow, wow. It was a bird. Kumao clasped his hands and placed them over his eyes. What a day it had been, and what a night it would be. He leaned back in the sofa. He leaned back in the sofa. Thank you.
My short story entitled Deja Vu is about a young man, a medical student, who discovered that one of the cadavers that was being used for anatomy class was actually the body of his late twin brother, who had been discovered to be missing for a long time. Cadavers are usually picked from mortuaries, abandoned or unclaimed bodies that are used by medical students to study. So this story is about that incident. Professor Idogo noticed that something was wrong with the young man. Hey boy, what's the matter? Why are you jabbering and looking like you've seen a ghost? He asked. With a terror-stricken finger, Kehinde pointed at the cadaver as he announced in a trembling voice, that is my twin brother. What? Half of the class exclaimed as they now craned their necks to study the cadaver's face. Even with the stiff and waxing skin that had become very black because of the formalin preservative, the resemblance to Kehinde was still striking. As the students stampeded to ascertain the truth, a wave of panic now swept through Kehinde as he stood quivering on the spot. Then, as if in a trance, he went over to the cadaver, took another look, and caressed the face. He almost looks alive, Kehinde thought to himself. At first, nobody in the room spoke, but at the sight of Kehinde caressing his dead brother's face, the room now buzzed with moans and whispers. The ladies started whimpering, and wiping away tears, while the boys mindfully resisted the tears. Even Jerome, the class jester, was trying to fight back tears. As the truth now hit him, Kehinde turned away, gasped, burst into tears, and broke into a blind run through the narrow aisle of the laboratory, knocking against the cadaver tables and display skeletons as he fled into the deserted corridor outside. Again, nobody tried to stop him, but were all overwhelmed by the nightmarish spectacle. It was only Professor Idogo who recovered first. Hey, stop him, please. Somebody please stop him before he injures himself, the professor shouted. However, Kehinde Anand abandoned himself to his newfound horror, and he kept running like a terrified beast. down the deserted, winding faculty corridors. Despite the professor's order, only Samuel and the other went after the boy. However, Kennedy continued running, and Samuel was trying to catch up with him. But he kept running and stumbling. Once in a while, he would slow down and look over his shoulder fearfully. Gradually, however, apparently worn out from emotion and the explosive run, he finally stopped running, and he was found sobbing and hitting a pillar in the corridor with his fists.
The title of my short story is Pregnant Angel. One can ask, how can an angel be pregnant? But at times, miracles do happen. The story of a young girl, 17-year-old girl, who suddenly appears on the farm of some elderly couple. And the way she appears almost from nowhere, look, she's very heavily pregnant. The wife tells the husband, look, this could be a spirit or something, maybe some angel. And when they ask her name, she says, Awobi. And in their language, Awobi means angel. So they took her for an angel. They asked where she comes from. And she says, from Ngbagbakpa, the village of Ngbagbakpa. And the man immediately gets angry because he has always had problems with the village of Ngbagbakpa. Ngbagbakpa. Gogo had always had problems with Ngbagbakpa. His own village, Shongo, still did not have electricity because of Ngbagbakpa. At the time the government was extending electricity to their backwater region, the imbecilic traditionalists of Ngbagbakpa stalled the project. Their beef, the gods of Ngbagbakpa abhorred artificial light in any form on their territory. It was a taboo for them, as revealed by Beko, the chief priest of Ngbagbakpa. Was the light for humans or for the gods? What about the light of the Osono, the oil lamp they used? Was that light created directly by nature or by humans? Not even the pylons and grid lines would be allowed to trespass the sacred soil of Ngbagbakpa. And because this same powerful Beko was rumored to be the spiritual protector of a very few very powerful politicians of the larger country, electricity had its full stop at the outskirts of Ngbagbakpa. Where else on planet Earth could this outrage be upheld? Thank you.
Just some very cheerful stories, for lack of a better word. The stories that were gathered in the anthology, was there a theme for the stories?
No, these are multi-thematic stories. Nobody was asked to write on a particular theme. So the stories came as the writers thought will fit into an anthology of this kind. Mary's had to do with mental health. Others had to do with something else. But at the end, bringing together this multiplicity of stories and from the geographies of Africa was something that was very intriguing. It has a common humanity. The stories will be familiar to people in Anglophone Africa, Francophone Africa, in Europe and elsewhere. And it also has to do with the title of what it is, the voices. Voices from where? Voices from Africa, of course. But beyond Africa, into the historical elements of the past, centuries ago, what happened? How did others get to the Americas, to Latin America, to the United States, to the Middle East? We sometimes forget that there are also Africans in the Middle East who got there from Africa. So these voices had been unblocked by language. And so the stories are from Francophone Africa, but they had to be translated into English because it's being published by an English publisher or somebody who publishes in English. So the veil is a symbol of non-communication, but at the same time, it's a symbol of communication. Why do you have to translate from French into English? But that was what we did. So hopefully in the future, we'll get a French literary scholar or editor who will also be interested in translating this into French, and then it will then get to a bigger audience beyond the Anglophone side of where we are. So basically that, but it was very difficult selecting the stories because there were many, about 30 of the stories didn't make it into this anthology. Not that they were substandard, but as we all know, the Nigerians can be very aggressive. They were writing stories from Kaduna, from Kano, and to the extent that the cultures are different, the stories are different, you will be forced, and the quality, very high quality storytelling, which I'm sure has to do more with the multiplicity of cultures. The Igbos are about 30 million. The Yorubas are about that number. So you expect that there will be incidents. There will be issues. And there are many issues in Nigeria, as we all know. Good, bad, evil sometimes. But goodness also pervades some of these. And these are reflected they are in the majority in this particular one. But there are also 4 Ghanaians also who contributed. Stories from Botswana, from South Africa, as the High Commissioner said, from Zambia, from Zimbabwe, and as far as from Congo, Malawi, and elsewhere. So 20 African countries with settings going as far as to Tanzania, to Kenya, and even to the northern part of Africa or the Mediterranean. So these are things we discuss and things we talk about, but formalize in an anthology like this.
So we just got lucky to have the stories that.
Yes, but they are also love stories. There is a particular one from Nigeria, as we say, they have many things to tell us of a wife who has stored the husband's number as a goat. And because this husband is very abusive, calling her all sorts of names. So we stored the number as a goat, and then mistakenly, the husband got to know of this. The elders were called, and as you were expecting a traditional African setting, the woman was found guilty. And notwithstanding her other grievances of home abuse, other things that happened to her normally in the house, the panel or the jury was, of course, also made up of men. And they thought whatever it was, a woman shouldn't do that. So there are stories like that, apart from the one that will also remind one of Weep Not Child, Ngugi wa Thiong'o's classic of somebody going to prison, coming back, escaping from prison just on time to find out that the wife was about to get married again. And so incidents like this will balance some of the stories that you heard Martin reading and from the Secretary General, and even Mary's ends very well. At least we don't talk about mental health, but it's becoming a big issue. And for me, a story like that is worth reading and trying to understand what it is that we do in the world today.
So I read your story, and my favorite line was, "I always knew you were born with drama." Can you tell us a bit about this story? The character arc of who was quite
The lady who's actually narrating this, her cousin is Kweku, and they grew up going to the same school, but she didn't know that he was her cousin. But she saw so many things that later on in life, she would look back on and say, there was an issue there. And I think we've all been there, where something happens and you're thinking, I saw something, that could have informed this. But when you're a child, you really don't understand. And so they grow up, they go to uni together, they go to the UK, And to all intents and purposes, everything is fine. And they meet back in Ghana, like many of us who travel back home to come and stay from the West. And they both got jobs and they both were living. They were jamming together on the weekends. You know, Kweku got married, had a wonderful baby. To all intents and purposes, everything seemed fine. And that's the thing with mental health. You know, for so long, we've thought that the person walking naked on the street is the one who's mentally ill. But all of us are mentally ill to a certain point. There's stuff bugging all of us, but many of us have figured out how to cope, right? And we are coping really, really well. And so sometimes you find that when someone commits suicide, people say, oh, how could that have happened? Because we think all the success factors are there and we tick all the boxes. And you think somebody like that shouldn't want to die, right? And therein lies the problem. And there are more young people doing this. Young people who are struggling to find meaning in their lives and not quite sure who to talk to because our society isn't too open enough to talk about it. And so for the narrator, she's looking back at all these times and thinking, I saw this and I saw that, and why didn't I do something about it? And each time I asked him, how are you? And he said, I'm fine. It's what we say when people ask us, how are you? I'm fine, but you're really not fine, right? And we need to be able to open the doors for people to be able to say, I'm not doing well. I'm not doing great. And so it's really a reminiscing type of moment for her. As she sits on the beach, the message comes through and she's just thinking back all the way to their childhood. And you mentioned the family, that drama runs in the family. And there are so many incidences there where sometimes people who are struggling to be themselves are dramatic, extra dramatic, right? And sometimes we just dismiss it, but sometimes it's a cry for help. So it's all those little pieces in our lives that we notice. It strikes us as just a little bit odd. We don't need to dismiss it. We need to ask questions and reach out, you know, to people. So the end is slightly uplifting because she reads the letter that he's written, and it's a hopeful letter. It's that it had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with my wife. Love her. It had nothing to do with my daughter. I have great hopes for her. Right? It has nothing to do with all of this. It's just I'm not in a space that I can cope with. You know, so he leaves her and tells her, look after my wife, look after my daughter, and you know, thanks for everything. But I gotta go. So that's why it's Kweku checks out. He checks out. He checks out of life. But he leaves her wondering about how she could have missed all the signs. So it's a bit of a wake-up call for us. Check up on one another, especially during COVID. It was really, really tough, but mental health resides, or mental illness resides in all of us to a certain degree. Some of us are luckier than others, but there are people suffering all around us. So don't let anyone check out of your life at all.
Martha, so I also read your story here. And, honestly, when it started, I didn't expect the story to be that way. It's, the death appeared in the first page, but I didn't expect the story to be that way. I found the father very, very liberal. And then I thought he was like a postmodern man, and then he was also a man very rooted in tradition and wanted the man to marry his daughter, even though the lady died before he had formally proposed to her. Tell me more about the story. What was going on?
Yeah, so there was a time many years ago that I came across it's a cultural norm in certain places that you could be made to marry somebody you were you could be made to marry somebody you were in a relationship with if you hadn't completed formalities, that is, okay? And so, this idea has stuck with me for many, many years because it's really curious. How does this happen? And of course, how else than to make people miserable by putting them in such a situation, you know? So I thought up this whole idea of a young man, and lots of people are in such situations right now, who is hitched up with a woman, right? And this particular situation is with the blessing of the dad, but the dad is a strict traditionalist. And it's clear from his perspective that there is no way his daughter is going to pass on into the other world if she had been with the man and wasn't married. So those were ground rules for him. Unfortunately, this gentleman falls into that situation. And so in the latter part of the story, the whole idea is he's married to the corpse in a ceremony. And of course, every marriage has to be consummated, right? so yeah, so that's where the idea I think came from long ago. I think it was on radio or something that I heard about this cultural quirk, and so I made it into a story.
Before I come back, I also noticed something about the story, that there's a certain level of empathy for people when you found out the gentleman had lost his fiancée, because people are afraid of the dad and didn't want to come to his shrine.
Mm-hmm.
But once he lost his daughter, people were empathetic enough to put aside their fear and bring the young man to the house. Can you tell me, like, was that something you were intentionally trying to bring out, like the way people relate to people who have lost other people?
No, I think I was trying to make it a bizarre situation as natural as possible, you know. So, I mean, the young lady's uncles and aunts all come and do a formal marriage ceremony. I mean, everything. And then the guy, of course, when he goes into town to buy the items, the dowry and stuff, you know, I mean, people look at him sympathetically, because if you notice from earlier in the book, he had more or less been warned, like, okay, so why do you think nobody else is hanging out with this extremely beautiful girl, etc., you know? And so when this happens, of course, brothers must extend sympathy. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
So your story elicits some very strong emotions. I noticed the lady over there, she gasped when you gave the summary of the story. Can you tell us more about it? Was the idea to elicit such strong emotions, or were you just telling a story that happened? Elicit strong emotions.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I'm a disciple of Russian literature. And those of you who are familiar with Russian literature, you will discover that many of the novels are psychological novels. The movements are very emotional and very strong. Dostoevsky and somebody like Anton Chekhov and all these Russian writers, they really put much emphasis on developing psychological and emotional dialogue in their books. And I've read a couple of such books, and somehow, I don't know whether I've been badly influenced or positively influenced by them. And so most of my works are usually very psychological. And again, because of my medical background, I find myself going back often and often to tap into that source. One of my publishers had to warn me at the time that I should write love stories for a change. He's tired of all these gory stories. And this didn't happen actually when we were in medical school. And like I said, during our own time, medical training, the cadavers were usually picked from unclaimed bodies in mortuaries. I understand that in the Western country now, they now use plastics and dummies, which I think are not as natural as what we were using before. We were using the real thing. And it occurred that it happened that this twin In the Yoruba culture, the twins are really named Kende, Taiwo. I know in African culture, they also have various names for them. Apparently, one of the twins have been lost. I've been lost for a while. And they gave up looking for him, only for the twin brother to discover him during the cadaver anatomy class. And so I tried to put a lot of strong emotions, and I'm happy I got that reaction from the lady. I was expecting something like that.
Yeah, so your story is a bit like Martin's story, but slightly different, and it talks about widowhood rights from the perspective of the community, and Martin's story talks about widowhood rights from the perspective of the community. And in the story, the young lady is forced to marry the abusive father of her husband who had just died, and what is the hope of that? Can you tell us more about the story and what we're trying to do?
Okay, thank you. Basically, the story tries to uphold and defend and protect the dignity of women, basically. Because in many traditions, girls as young as 12 years old are married to men as old as their grandfathers and things of that nature. Yeah. So in this particular story, there's a couple, an old couple, who lost a child. They have 3 children. They lost their only girl child when she was a 1-week-old baby. And then years later, this pregnant angel, with her completely shaven because he's just undergone widowhood rights. And she appears and they have sympathy on her. And it was going to rain. It's going to rain. So they decide, and she's been walking all day because she's fleeing from Mbakbakba, the evil village, to her mother's village, about 25 miles away. So they said, no, you can't. She was hungry. Actually, they give her food. They said, you can't continue under this weather to your mother's village. Let's take you home, feed you, take care of you. Tomorrow morning, we can let you go. So they take her home. Unfortunately, she begins to labor in the middle of the night. So she drops the baby in the village. But because he was still bleeding, they have to take her to the hospital, some 25 miles away. No vehicle because of Mbakbakba. No road passes through their village. No electricity, nothing. And they managed to get her to the hospital. And then, fortunately, she drops another baby, twins. When day breaks, the girl's husband, whom she's running away from, and her parents appear at the hospital. And then when the old lady sees the mother of the girl, she said, I've seen this face before. So she whispers to the husband. They sneak away and they go and bring in the police. That lady who is the mother, the supposed mother of this pregnant angel, some 17 years ago, appeared in their village pregnant. She's looking for a place to sleep, and they give her a place to sleep. When day breaks, their baby is gone. The lady is gone with the baby. So years later, this is how God arranges to bring their baby. So at the hospital, when they realize that, no, this is a lady who disappeared with our child, they go in for the police. The lady is arrested. She tries to, deny, but they conduct DNA test, and they realize that the girl, the pregnant angel, is actually the daughter of this old couple. So he's come back, and they arrive in the village. When the news spreads, and by the time they get to the village, it's like a festival. The whole village. The girl that was lost at age 1, when she was only 1 week old, is coming back home, not as 1, but 3, because he's coming with her twin babies. So the whole village celebrates, and it's full of widowhood rights. The way when the husband died, they forced her to sleep with their corpse for 10 days in the same room. He and the corpse alone sleeping in the same room for 10 days. When they bath the corpse, they give her the water to drink. It's been happening. So I mean, some nasty, terrible things happen. But in all these situations, it is women who basically enforce those traditions which go against women. When you go to the witches' camp, it is women who are protecting them, making sure that they obey. So it's something like an outcry against the way women are treated in our societies. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take some questions, but I would like to give the mic to the lady in green who had such strong reactions to quite a lot of the story. Maybe she could say something about her reactions and the stories that she just heard. Yeah. Okay.
I just want to say all the stories are amazing and so intense. I didn't expect to react like that. I thought I might be slightly emotional, but I didn't have an outlet. So this is just the thought of someone speaking of cough and drink old blood. It's just, I don't know. But yeah, I'm definitely reading this stuff. I mean, of course, I've read my sister's own, and you've got to read it. I mean, that's about mental health, and we all need to know more about mental health. Because but all these other stories, I am reading them because, well, I haven't been able to handle, but I won't force myself to read them because I want to know everything about the stories, but it's just so intense. I don't know how I'm going to get through it. I'm probably going to cry, but oh God, it's just so intense. Yeah, thank you all so much.
What's your name?
My name is Esther Black.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
All right, so the mic will start taking some questions for any of the writers, and I'm the only one taking. If you have any questions, please the mic and please tell us your name and can ask the question.
Okay, my name is from Ghana Broadcasting. I represent the director. But when I saw the book, I was like, we are talking of stories. And the book looks so big. How are we going to do? We finish the story. But upon hearing what I'm hearing, I think it's very interesting. And nobody will get tired of reading this book. Thank you, Professor, for doing a wonderful work. Thank you.
Thank you to me for also any other questions or comments? Okay. If there are no comments or questions, I will move the mic around. Yes, do we have any questions from the online audience? No questions. Okay. First I'll ask Ivor a question and then we'll pass the mic around. So Ivor, you mentioned that there were quite a lot of stories and that acted down to 53, 56, sorry. What was your favorite story that didn't make it? That didn't make it. That's one is difficult. But they were very good stories. What I did was I paired someone very young with someone very experienced and established. The youngest is from Chobi, who is 23. And stories from some of them are very beautiful. But then they are also not well established.
So to leave them on their own and to have their stories published should be a difficult. So having them working together or having them in an anthology that also have very well established rights. We have the doctrine. We have some of these that are prize winning writers. Sort of force others to discover talents that they may not know or they may not come across. So that was strategy at one level. But for those I rejected, not for want of bad writing, I don't think I will remember the stories. I remember very well the ones I selected. Kept reading them all the time. Through a series of editorials, so I remember very well some of the stories. I also, like you, also got very emotional about it. Stopped reading them in the mornings. Some of them in the mornings. I want to begin on the sound and not reacting with ghosts. People who are not very serious. Very cosmopolitan, but it's also very tragic. Very grateful to contributors who are with us, those who are online, those that were written, who we may see in Malawi, where we also have a lunch, Facebook, and in Addis. Thank you very
Question. So, how long have you been writing?
Real stuff that gets published.
I mean,
Just portraying around
everything.
everything. I think my first serious writing project was when I turned 40. And they say life begins at 40. So maybe that was why I started with a memoir. So that's my best-selling work. That's called Tuesday's Child. My name is Adna. Yeah.
The red book.
Orange.
Orange, yeah.
So that was Tuesday's Child. And I think it was just therapy for me. I needed to write it. It was about growing up, all the changes that happened, moving to different countries, and having a grandmother who seemed so constant in your life. It was such a pillar. And then that grandma died, and I had to ask myself who I was. And so that was a very therapeutic project for me. But I honestly didn't think it could go anywhere until someone told me to submit it for the Amazon Weekly Novel Award. And so I sent it, and it starts off with 10,000 entries. And then they cut that down to 5,000, 5,000 to 1,000, 1,000 to 500. And each time I was in it, I thought, this isn't happening. It can't be that what seems so natural for me to write about could actually be worth something. So I got cut when it got to 150. And that was the quarterfinal. So I think that's what gave me the courage to actually write and show my work to others. So it's been a really great experience. I've done a lot of work with Iva. Most recently, we staged a play at the National Theatre. Willis Shulinka's Death of the King's Horseman was staged at the National Theatre. We executive produced it. And it's been wonderful to have him as a mentor, guiding and prodding here and there. So thank you. Oh. So all of that experience has helped to allow me to, I noticed a lot of us on the stage that I'm a writer. I don't know that I've had the courage to see that. I think I see myself as a teacher first, but I do know that I love to write, and I write when something seizes me. And this particular story was because I met a young man who I'd known for quite a while, was always happy-go-lucky. And I met him one day and he was not himself. And I asked him why. And his cousin had died. And I said, what happened? He goes, no one knows what happened. And that's how the story came about. Because we always know what happened, but we just can't face it. So whenever something seizes me, I write about it. So maybe one day I will call myself a writer.
I can't wait to turn 40 and then also start writing. Yeah, Martin, you have quite a lot of short stories out there, and the themes are quite varied. Some of them are very humorous, some of them are very dark, and some of them are very funny. Do you have a favorite genre of writing, especially for short stories, like a favorite theme?
So I think the answer is no, because a lot of the time I don't really know where a story is going to lead me if I know where it's coming from. And I think that there will be the stories that will come will be as varied as the situations I find myself in. And in terms of having a favorite, well, no, I think what it's more like having a kind of style that I see pretty much in the rearview mirror. It's after I've written the story that I begin to identify that, okay, so this was what was working.
So how can I be like you when I grow up?
So first you have to grow up. Yeah, so no, I think that it's not possible to answer it because I don't think I did anything special. You know, I was just there as a brain. Because I find myself writing. So I don't think that I really did X, Y, or Z, which is different. Make me write these types of stories.
Yeah. So Nigeria has a rich history of writing, and almost everybody here who attended a Ghanaian school has probably read one Nigerian writer or the other. What do you think of the young generation of Nigerian writers that are coming up, and how different is their writing from writers from maybe previous generation?
Yeah, I think the first thing to know that India is a big country, about 230 million people, uh, 7 times population of Ghana. So when you talk that you have big writers, because number one, population is large. Then secondly, the truth of the matter is that just like any, there's always a generation clash in the country. First set of writers, then gone to Chile, Shoshika, and others, were the products of colonial environment. So many of the writers were about that clash between colonial masters and the newly independent country. So their themes of book writing are mainly about class struggle, religion, and intellectual competition between the African and European background. During our last conference in Ibadan, we saw a photograph of African writers who were in Makerere 62 years ago, who went to a conference in Makerere in Ghana. And we saw all of them wearing suits, including Shoshika, and people are laughing at. So this one, at the time, was wearing suits. Somebody who was always looking down on the Western dressing, just to show you that their generation was the post-colonial generation. Now, the young generation, the younger generation, who are even younger than me, and writing things that are different, things around them, because literature usually, what to write, usually from the environment, and they now write about things that are common, maybe single parent food, environmental use, they write about migration, exile, and all those things. And some of the senior writers look down and sometimes criticize the young generation for being too obsessed with sex, issue of single parenthood and all those stuff. They believe that some of their writings are not ideological writing, because in their own generation, they were writing about Marxism, socialism, and all these things that have gone. And
the younger generation don't think about those. They're thinking about what's really affected. Typical young African graduate. His or her plans is how to go to America or how to go abroad. So these are the things of their life. And for me, I can understand. Even though sometimes when you organize literary competitions, you give them themes. It's difficult to give themes. And that's why I like the approach of Bible. And in this book, we refuse to give themes. Because what kind of things we want to give that will encourage both young generation and the older generation at the same time. But for me, the young generation are very active, very viral, and they are winning prizes all over the place. Even so much that I have to balance my duty as Secretary General of Power. Each time I'm looking for books or you want to promote books, you have to balance them, make sure we don't not the old ones.
Thank you. So we'll take a final comment from Saki and then we'll round up and close. So for you, you are both into drama and into writing books. Is there a difference in like writing for stage and writing for the page?
Yeah, there are different formats for writing publications, writing short stories, play, page, drama, and I've been writing for all of them. So I mostly write for television since 1994. I've been writing TV drama, you have to get involved first in theater. Oh, later became TV theater. Yeah. And then I've had the place of the home at the University of Ghana, from Diploma. But I have one play which is also, it looks like I like to write stories which favor women. You know, it's like I don't know whether maybe the women mother brought me up. It's the title is Firestorm, and it is about how one woman decides to rise against the treatment of women in their society. You know, and that's the first Ghanaian play that was performed at National Theatre when it was completed. You know, way back in 19 or thereabout. Yeah. So I've been writing for all the journalists. I've been publishing short stories in the Mirror also since 1982. You know, yeah. So mostly that's where I've been writing short stories and then TV drama and stage play. Now I'm moving into Accra, writing novels and publishing. You know, last year I published you know, the people's creed. It's also about a girl child. You know, how I made an experiment when I gave birth to my daughter in 1993. Before she went to, that's when I decided I love reading. So I'm appealing to everyone here. If you have a girl child, please make sure she reads stories a lot because it helps. When you get a full command of the English language, science become like any subject. And that's what it was like an experiment made with my daughter. Before she entered primary school, she was reading novels. And she was able to go through Aflaje, the best place in Ghana, from Church to Western Girls, University of Ghana, Belfast. You know, so it looked like the experiment worked. She had, you know, subjects or courses very easy because reading. She's always reading. You know, so I write for people to read, and I enjoy it when people read my stories. Thank you.
Thank you. So you guys have been an amazing audience, and I thank you for.
We have one question.
Oh, one question.
One Martin Kobo. Martin Kobo is an illustrator and an later, and he wants to ask the editor if he has thought about animating the stories or telling them to films as these are popular medium in today's
Well, what is we're trying to do now is many of the stories in this collection are being submitted by the publishers for awards within Ghana, South Africa, and other places. And I'm sure some of them will make it. So good luck to those who are on stage. I think your stories are part of what will be submitted. And I'm sure with a collection like this, you get somebody else who will be interested in looking at it differently through another medium, animation. It's possible. So it's possible it can be done. Not by me, but by maybe another creative artist who will find the stories interesting enough to do that.
Thank you. Any more questions from our online folks? So like I was saying, you have been an amazing audience. I've loved watching your reactions from all the way here. And I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank all our guests and all the writers, those who are here and those who are not here, and our online audience, and wish everybody a good night. And of course, I want to thank myself also. All right, so over to you, MC.
Another round of applause for the editor and the contributors to this. Okay, so we are winding up now. We will have the CEO of DigiBooks Ghana Limited, Mr. Fred Labi, who is the publisher of this anthology, give us a short remark and then we move on. Mr. Fred Labi, shall we give him a round of applause?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hinijang, the High Commissioner from South Africa, Her Excellency Grace Generation. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be able to present DigiBooks as the publisher of this great book. First, I'd like to thank Ivor for giving DigiBooks the opportunity. It's been a great pleasure working with Ivor. We like his dedication to excellence. And I'm hoping this is our fourth book we worked together, and I know there will be a lot more books coming our way. It's been quite an exciting evening to be able to now identify some of the writers. I read a book, but I didn't know, apart from Dr. Ishon, who I knew personally, I didn't know any of the writers. And it's so exciting to be able to identify some of the writers. The forum with the editors has been quite exciting. Dr. Ishon, Mr. Sakisua, Dr. Martin, the moderator did a very good job so that the audience were able to listen to some of the stories. This is quite a very exciting book, and I hope it will go very far. I will move on to thank the multimedia company. If you all know, this program is live on Joy FM, and it's also live on Joy TV. Our biggest thanks will go for our chairman who comes from the National Service. I'm glad to announce here that yes, they have offered to buy 100 books for the Ghana Library. So these books is going to be in every library in Ghana. And I know the books will do very well. Thank you very much for taking your time to come to this event. The books will be on sale over here outside at the price of 150 cedis. And after this event, the books will be on sale in Kingdom at Legon, Kingdom Head Office at Akweje, Kingdom Kumasi, Challenge Bookshop, EPP Bookshop at Legon, Airport Shell, Powerhouse, and online, you can get it on Amazon.com and Amazon.co.uk. And the Book Nook store will also sell it. And DigiBook's website will also sell it. Thank you very much for taking your time to come to see the outdooring of this event. Our special thanks also go to the High Commissioner for coming to launch this special book. Thank you all. Yes. I forgot our host. We've enjoyed being here. Thank you very much, our host, for giving the opportunity to come to launch this book here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fred Labi. At this point, we will take closing remarks from the chairman, Mr. Kweku Ohinejan.
But before the closing remark, we would like the chairman to donate a book to the representative of the CEO of the Ghana Library. The 100 books we are giving, we are showing donating a book, then we shall deliver the 100 books. So if the representative for the Ghana Library is here, please come along. Yeah, editor.
Yeah, Mr. Editor. All right.
Join us to donate it. It would be nice. The library.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fred Labi. Mr. Chairman, your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. The High Commissioner, the writers, the publisher, invited ladies and gentlemen. I think this has been an evening well spent. It's been a very good evening. The intensity has been there, and I'm also thrilled by the level of literary prowess that we have seen here this evening. And so from our part, we have done this donation particularly given the kind of people we work with and we represent. This is our agency, it's a youth agency. And the stories we have shared here today are stories that cuts across every facet of life. And these are things they will need to learn from and to be the best of everything they aspire to be. I'd also want to use this platform to make a passionate appeal to the writers who sat here. I think that they mentioned their ages, and I think that there should be an opportunity for them to mentor some of the young up-and-coming writers who are interested in going into writing. You've been amazing, and I want to thank all of you for the support that you have extended to all of us. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have come to the end of this event. There will be the sale and signing of the anthology on my right-hand side. And there will be refreshments at the back. So please get a copy of the book for yourself and then go to the table at the back for refreshments. My name is Kofi Jogbavu, and I have been your MC for tonight. Thank you very much. We have closed. Thank you.